The left have shown their cards and aren't shy about their plans anymore, as Facebook's former chief security officer told little Brian Stelter over the weekend.
We have to turn down the capability of these conservative influencers to reach these huge audiences. There are people on YouTube, for example, that have a larger audience than daytime CNN, and they are extremely radical and pushing extremely radical views. And so it's up to the Facebooks and YouTubes in particular to think about whether or not they want to be effectively cable networks for disinformation. And then we're going to have to figure out the OANN and Newsmax problem. That these companies have freedom of speech, but I'm not sure we need Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such to be bringing them into tens of millions of homes.
Well, sir, you're right about one thing. Some of us do have a bigger audience than CNN, but more importantly than that, I have respect. And that's something that you can't pay for. Unlike CNN paying airports across the country to air their propaganda, something that I did see they're supposedly going to finally put an end to, probably because so many people are complaining about being subjected to such nonsense while they're waiting for their flights. While Brian Stelter is a seemingly harmless fool, he does play a central role in the plot to censor conservatives from social media, particularly his sidekick Oliver Darcy, who just tweeted this. Just a reminder that neither Verizon, AT&T, nor Comcast have answered any questions about why they beam channels like OAN and Newsmax into millions of homes. Do they have any second thoughts about distributing these channels given their election denialism content? They won't say. But the purge is going to get a lot worse before things begin to get any better, and newly elected Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was just suspended from Twitter for 12 hours for tweeting something that Twitter determined undermined faith in our democracy, which means that a member of Congress used her First Amendment right to question how old Joe was able to pull off his win. By the way, I've seen some comments from people who say that I look pretty tired lately, which sometimes I am when I do work pretty late, or that I look baked, which I'm not, but I have had some issues with my eyes lately, and I did go to the eye doctor, and he gave me a prescription for some tobramycin and dexamethasone ophthalmic suspension, so hopefully that'll work, or might just be eye strain from too much computer time, but I'm working on it. Jack Dorsey, on the other hand, I'm pretty sure is smoking something, or rather microdosing, which is very popular amongst the Silicon Valley tech titans, and he is, according to the New York Times, in hiding on a private island in French Polynesia, which is strange because I thought that Epstein only owned one island. While the Democrats are equating opposing certifying the Electoral College vote with treason and being part of an attempted coup, I'm old enough to remember the 2016 presidential election when a group of celebrities who always know what's best got together and put out a pathetic PSA begging the electors not to cast their vote for Donald Trump in a last-ditch effort to try to prevent him from becoming president.
Republican members of the Electoral College, this message is for you. As you know, our founding fathers built the Electoral College to safeguard the American people from the dangers of a demagogue and to ensure that the presidency only goes to someone who is, to an eminent degree, endowed with the requisite qualifications.
An eminent degree. Someone who is highly qualified for the job.
The Electoral College was created specifically to prevent an unfit candidate from becoming president.
There are 538 members of the Electoral College. You
and just 36 other conscientious Republican electors can make a difference.
By voting your conscience on December 19th.
And thereby shaping the future of our nation.
It wasn't just celebrities, however, who were trying to undermine our democracy. There were also a few Democrat members of Congress who objected back then to certifying the Electoral College vote. You know, the same thing that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley did, but the Democrats are demanding that they get expelled from the Senate for doing so. I'm also old enough to remember back to the 2000 election debacle with the hanging chads and the Supreme Court case in Florida, and many Democrats accused George W. Bush of eeling stay the election, eh? Gotta speak in pig Latin to throw off the automatic transcript that's generated by the voice recognition system in YouTube. Otherwise, this video may get automatically pulled down because it'll see that I mentioned a forbidden phrase. So, at the moment, humans still are smarter than AI, but who knows how much longer that'll be. By the way, George W. Bush is a third-generation Skull and Bones member, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did. In fact, I'd be surprised if they didn't. And I vividly remember the 2004 election when George W. Bush faced off against John Kerry, who also, what a coincidence, is a member of Skull and Bones. And again, Democrats accused George W. Bush of eeling stay that election A.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look forward...
Are you prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
And we all know what happened after the 2016 election for 3 years or so until the coronavirus kind of changed the topic when Democrats repeatedly said that Donald Trump will stay the election A. For generations, it's practically been an American pastime for the losing party to accuse the winning party of engaging in election fraud. I mean, have you heard about what the mob supposedly did for John F. Kennedy in Illinois? I mean, that I believe.
It was easy for the mob to help Joe Kennedy get his son elected president. That was easy. They just punched up the voter roll to make sure that he won in Illinois.
But like all great American traditions, liberals have ruined it. At least for us Republicans, of course, everything's always a one-way street with them. They can accuse us of doing it, but as soon as we start pointing the finger back at them, then we get banned from the internet and accused of being part of a coup. Of course, Democrats are trying to lump all Trump supporters in with a handful of those who were inside the Capitol on January 6th, a day that will live in infamy, even though 99% of those who were actually in the building that day didn't know that they weren't supposed to be there because they didn't know that the doors were actually pried open, and it looked more like a high school field trip with a few troublemakers than it did an attempted coup. I mean, does this look like a guy who has a plan? The paranoia has kicked into overdrive, however. One Democrat member of Congress believes that she saw some Republican members of Congress on a reconnaissance mission with some of the protesters in the Capitol in the days leading up to the attempted siege, collaborating with them, conspiring, and helping them map out their plans. There are a growing number of Democrats who are calling for an investigation into their Republican counterparts to determine whether or not the protesters had help from the inside. The left doesn't just want President Trump banned from social media. They want him deleted from everywhere, and there are growing calls to have his cameo in Home Alone 2 deleted, and Macaulay Culkin has now signed on and agrees. The Associated Press is upset that people have podcasts where they're talking about how they believe that the election A was Olenstay, and said podcasts with misinformation remain on platforms like Apple and Google as people exploit a loophole left after tech companies have cracked down on other mediums. Freedom of speech is just a loophole, they say, and later this year, when people start coming out with books about the 2020 election, I guarantee you that the leftist activists are going to be demanding that Amazon pull them, and they very well might. I just did a search on Twitter, and just as I expected, for well over a week now, people have been consistently tweeting at Amazon demanding that they stop selling all Trump-related merchandise. And after old Joe is inaugurated on Wednesday, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. They'll probably say he's a private citizen now and his name has become synonymous with hate, and that's a violation of our terms of service. So I'm doing one more print run of my limited edition Trump shiny silver silhouette shirt and the red reflective MAGA country shirt, which glimmer in the light because they're printed with a special reflective ink. I actually still regularly wear my Ron Paul 2012 shirt. It's one of my favorite shirts, and I know that for many years to come, for as many washes as they'll survive, you will enjoy any of my Trump shirts, like the Abraham Lincoln Trump shirt, the Ronald Reagan Trump shirt, the JFK Trump shirt, or any of my awesome designs. So head on over to markdice.com or click the link in the description below while you can and check them out.